Welcome to the T2 Hubcast. Join Martin, Dave, Spencer and guests as they discuss all things personal and professional development. The T2 Hubcast, brought to you by the People Performance People.
So welcome back to the T2 Hubcast with me, Martin Johnson, and my special guest today, Liz Abram. Have I got that right?
You have got that right. Hello.
We've just been laughing about how you pronounce Liz's last name, so I had to do it in a Lancashire accent, even though that was probably more Yorkshire. Liz is our special guest today. She's actually doing some work with us at T2 in an up-and-coming masterclass around resilience. Liz is a colleague and a friend of Spencer Locker's. And did you first meet on the show of SAS Who Dares Wins?
The first time I met Spence was in that location in South Wales when we did the first series.
Right, but prior to SAS Who Dares Wins, you didn't know Spencer?
I didn't actually know him. We have a mutual friend.
Right.
And obviously, it's one of those things where our paths might have crossed at any time, but didn't.
Right.
At the time when he was serving in the unit that I was affiliated with, through being a reservist at the time, I was also, I think, serving. Well, my husband was serving out in Germany, so I didn't make it over very often.
So just give me, correct me if I've got this wrong, and this is the moment I think I should have done some more research. Mm-hmm. However, on your LinkedIn, it's very private. So did you serve? Was you ex-military?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was your force?
I was an RAF officer.
RAF?
Education officer, and I taught German and Spanish amongst other things. But one of the main problems is education officer was actually admin education specialist. Now, my admin is not brilliant. In fact, I'm a bit of an admin vortex, to be fair.
Are you really?
Yeah, I am. I can organise and I can plan and I can execute pretty well, but admin, no, it's not my thing.
Now, one of the things I've noticed already, Liz, is you are a real character and a personality. I've only met you this morning, but you've got such a character, but you're very softly spoken. And I want people to hear you. So if you can, just project.
Just project.
Absolutely.
Darling. Okay.
So Liz is on the show, SAS Who Dares Wins.
Yes.
As a resistance-to-interrogation instructor.
Yeah.
And it's the part of the show, as we've discussed off air, where the recruits have been through hell and back for a number of days.
Bless them.
And then they come to you.
Yeah.
And you, Spencer, and the team put them through a really, really tough 24, 48 hours to try and break them.
Well, actually, breaking them is not what we're about. If you have a real life prisoner in front of you, then maybe breaking is okay.
Yeah.
If you've got a student in front of you, then you pull back.
Yeah.
Every time it looks like they're about to quiver and break, you pull back and you try a different angle, because you're about training them so that they can access. If it ever happens to them again, or anything similar ever happens to them again, they can have developed their own in-house strategy in their head of how to cope. So you don't break anybody.
But you take them to the potential point.
You take them to a breaking point, definitely.
Yeah.
And then you pull back, and I'd like to think with some degree of skill and alacrity, you then point them in a slightly different direction, have another pop from a different angle, and see how they cope with that.
Love it, because you're known on the show. I mean, you said you was the token bird. I would like to say you're the only woman in the interrogation team, but you're known for your 1 minute you're very nice and you're the mother figure and you're very soft-spoken and personable, and the next minute your eyeballs are out and you're screaming at somebody.
I access the Harridan. It's the memory of getting the kids ready for school at sort of 8 o'clock in the morning when they're still messing about, and you have to access your inner fishwife and go for it. So I'm drawing on my own experiences, but it is hard work actually. Because you've got to come up with a lot of energy, like a fireball, all of a sudden, and you've got to access something deep within.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you are ex-military, you was RAF, and through that, therefore, you got introduced to to take part on a course to become a resistance-to-interrogation instructor.
Like many things, it happened in the bar.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I was approached by a chap who worked at some top secret bunker somewhere in Germany, and I didn't know what he did. And he was just about to go head back to the UK to form the defence debriefing team. And he came up to me in the bar in the officers' mess one night, and he said, and he knew I could talk the hind leg off a donkey, and he knew I was a linguist, and he said, would you like to learn Serbo-Croat and become an interrogator? Well,
wow.
Rude not to, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
And I said, yes, please. And so that's what I did. And I went back, and I was one of the founders of, founder members of the defence debriefing team, which has probably changed an enormous amount since then. But back in, oh gosh, I can't even remember what year it was now. It would have been about 91, 92.
Yeah, early 90s.
Yeah, I went back, and I was on active service in the UK, which is unusual, in civilian clothing, talking to people that had come out of theatres of interest. But when you debrief somebody, that was defined at the time as a systematic extraction of information from a willing subject, as opposed to interrogation, which was defined as the systematic extraction of information from an unwilling subject. Yeah. But actually, you can always, if with a degree of skill and rapport, get a lot more out of somebody than they thought that they knew, or that maybe they were willing to give you in the first place. So
cool.
You draw on all sorts of rapport building skills, relationship building skills. And I think what happened during that time in particular is that I became quite good at reading people.
Yeah. Well, let me push it on to that, because I think you've got some letters after your name on LinkedIn, and it's some Society of Psychiatry. Is that right?
It's the National Council of Psychotherapists.
Psychotherapists.
I'm not a psychotherapist. I'm a coach.
Yeah.
But it's the NCP that endorse me for my professional accreditation.
Right.
And so that I'm fully bombed up and insured as a coach.
However, you've got a whole host of life skills behind that, which has built your like myself, there's a number of different environments you've been exposed to, like the military, like consulting industries, etc., which there you build up a multitude of skills to be able to apply. So you're into your psychology, the human element of performance, and how people think, feel, act, and behave.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the idea of neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, fascinates me. Although it took me a while, I must admit, when I was training, to get my head around what it was. But NLP just really means how you talk to yourself. The words you use, the language you use to when you're thinking to yourself, and you can, with a bit of jiggery pokery, reframe how you're feeling about something, and get a much better result. And
I've trained in NLP as well, Liz, and my sort of take on it, I mean, as well as some of the other stuff we do here at T2, but my take on NLP was I think I've took 20-25% of NLP away that I really believe in and I practice. Yeah. And I've left some of it that I think then crosses into potentially not being authentic enough, and you're just constantly morphing and second guessing everything.
I don't play that game at all.
Yeah.
Likewise, as a coach as well, sometimes people ask you a question. Now, a really coachy coach will then answer every question that the client comes up with another blooming question. Yeah. Well, that infuriates the life out of me. If I was the coachee, I'd be thinking, would you just answer the flaming question?
Yeah, I've come here for your opinion.
So I try and cleverly couch it with I found that other people have done X, Y, and Z and got this result.
Yes.
It saves about 2 hours.
Well, I'm a bit of an action coach or a practical coach in the way I would say I'm not one of those coaches. And it's an important part of coaching is listening. Listening is an incredibly important part, as is acknowledgement sometimes without an answer. It's just the fact that there's a safe environment to offload and then someone's there to acknowledge without judge. Right. Now, that's a really important point. But I think there's only so much of that can go on. Great coaches will then find the right spots to offer insight and challenge or give practical guidance. Absolutely. And I think as long as you find the balance, that's really, really insightful.
Coaching for me is several things. It's a big, safe pair of hands. So at the moment that you've built rapport with your coachee, the coachee feels probably unconsciously, actually, that they can just tell you everything. And it's not about telling me everything. It's not that at all. However, sometimes when a coachee is talking to you, it's the first time they've heard themselves speak about a certain thing. And then also with coaching, for me, your big pair of ears, but your big pair of ears actually is more than that. not only are you listening hard with your ears, you're reading somebody's intention, you're reading the language that they're using, you're very much reading the energy that they're using or that is affecting them as they're telling you their story or telling you their woe or whatever it is they're stuck with. And your mirror matching and pacing a little bit with energy levels, as well as the pitch of your voice, with your non-verbal cues as well, to get that coachee into a space where they start to feel resilient and that they can access their own superpower. And accessing your own superpower, to me, is what resilience actually is.
Yeah, love it. Love it. So let's move it on to that. There's 3 things I wanted to sort of talk to you about, Liz. So being on the show is only one thing you've done in your life. As you say, you're ex-military, you're a performance coach. But being on the show, for example, of SAS Who Dares Wins, a lot of it is about resilience, testing for resilience, putting pressure on human beings in a controlled environment. And it's also testing for the third point being who has the potential leadership skills in here to not only excel themselves, but to influence others as well. So let's break them 3 down. Let's start with resilience. How would you describe resilience? Because we hear it bandied around a lot. It's very much tied into to mental health and having positive mental health these days. But I've got a bit of a bee in my bonnet about resilience, and I'm challenging people to put the ownership back on us, right? We've got to take some control back over the way we interpret the stress response, etc. But what's your initial view on resilience?
Resilience is the realization that not only do you have your own superpower, but you can actually access it. And it's keeping the channels open when things aren't going well.
So you're saying straight away there, we can control this thing if we practice. If we bring the unconscious into the conscious, and we start thinking about how we think and what we believe massively influences our resilience levels.
It's about learning how to turn your volume knobs down on certain aspects that are going on around you. Even certain aspects of your own personality trait, which might be you might be prone to negative, if you're thrown into what I've discovered is called your shadow self.
Yes.
If you're thrown into that, you can still consciously go, right, I'm not going to stay here. Let me turn the volume knob down on that. And let's focus on the job in hand here. What do I need to do to get through the next 5 minutes?
Yes.
Do I need to be afraid of anything? Am I about to lose my life? Yes or no? No? Right. Okay.
Do I need from there?
Yeah.
What do I'm a big fan of, Liz. What do I control in the here and now?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That can make a difference to what I'm worried about or anxious about. So what can I control here? What do I not control, which is what we call a hypothetical worry.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that kill us. The hypothetical worries are the ones that really, really test us, because when we're focused on things we can't control, that we perceive may happen in the future, that tends to really test our resilience.
Yeah. And I think a little bit of bollocks to that goes a long way, doesn't it?
It does.
But it's having that confidence to be able to feel that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
At the time, but that can be learned and developed. And I think also I'm in a lucky position now that I'm almost at the dizzy age of 53, and I think some of it does come with age as well.
Yeah.
Because you realise, hang on, I've got this far and I haven't died. And
I have coped with numerous situations, and let's put some perspective onto it and let's bring it back to the present.
It is about perspective. Perspective is a word that we use a lot, but I think it's little understood, particularly in the heat of the moment, that you can control the perspective that you have on any situation by just a little bit of stepping back from a situation and having a right good look from maybe another person's shoes, even trying to look at yourself from in a meta perspective, as in watch yourself as you're doing something, hear yourself as you're saying something.
Play it back.
Play it back to yourself.
Play back the way you reacted in the office today when somebody was crunching crisps loudly at the other end of the desk.
Yeah.
Not you.
Yeah.
Dave eats crisps. All it takes is Dave and a pack of crisps and my resilience is tested.
Mine used to be tested by my son. My son had a Monster Munch habit and it stank. And it's that smell. The sense of smell actually is really powerful and we underestimate it, don't we? But that smell of flaming Monster Munch. God. and I don't know, the little habits and tics that people have, then sometimes you just have to sit with it and find a way in your head to just work.
So what we're saying, Les, is the key to resilience is stay away from people who crunch crisps or eat flaming Monster Munch.
Monster Munches. the pickled onion ones. Crikey. Yeah.
Love it. Okay, so moving it on a little bit. One of the things we do here at T2, and that we're trying to instill in any program that we work with leaders or employees, people of all walks of life, is we're always going to be exposed to what we call pressure in life. That primarily comes when we do our psychology piece from our fight or flight. We're an animal, and survival is our number one instinct. Self-preservation is always going to be our number one innate response of the limbic system. Spence talks about the limbic system all the time.
He likes the limbic system.
Taught him everything he knew about the limbic system.
Yes.
So because we're built on survival, we're always going to find certain situations pressurizing when we feel under threat. And it's not always life and death. In fact, in the modern day world, Liz, very few things are life or death. So how does that survival instinct manifest in the modern day world? Well, it manifests when somebody puts something on social media and we believe it's aimed at us. It manifests when somebody questions your project or challenges your team in the workplace or undermines your authority or gives you constructive criticism in front of a group. This is where pressure builds for us in the modern day world. You've obviously been in environments where you're purposely putting people under pressure to build that level of resilience and to condition them, the power of repetition. So the question is this, Liz, what do you observe in those? Let's stick on the show for a second. What do you observe in those recruits who tend to deal with pressure better than the ones who don't? Is there anything you pick up? Is there any commonalities?
Yeah, it's when people have learned to, rather than react, to respond in a measured way.
So they freeze. They pause.
Yeah, pause, I would say, rather than freeze. Yeah. Because freeze is a different response, isn't it?
Yeah, freeze is like, I don't know what to do. Whereas
that's
a pause is,
fight, flight.
I'm thinking.
Exactly.
I'm thinking about this response or what this, Yeah.
Because when you think about it, people do like to put others under pressure for a snappy response or what have you. And I think learning to just take a little step back and a breath and compose yourself, well, it pays huge dividends, I reckon.
Yeah.
And it also helps you to not feel so rushed. Also, remembering that this took a long time for me to learn, but no is a complete sentence. And you don't have to say it in aggressive fashion. Neither do you have to apologize for a no.
Yeah.
And that is something that takes a lot of practice, but is a really good skill to learn. It takes the pressure off you. Otherwise, you end up in a position sometimes where you spread your Marmite too thin for your toast.
Well, most people, when they get put under pressure to make a decision by somebody else, they'll because of human nature and feelings, they'll probably say something like this. Even if they already know in their mind they can't commit to it or it's a no, they'll say, let me think about it and get back to you. But then that's snowballing more pressure because there's inevitably going to be a follow-up or a chaser or, So sometimes, like you said, just pausing, but then being comfortable and saying, do you know what, I can't this month or I can't do that. Yeah. Relieves that pressure straight away.
And everybody knows where they stand and they might be a little crestfallen, but why should anybody put you under undue pressure? I say undue pressure. I mean, it might be that the pressure is your job, in which case you're going to have more difficulty saying no, aren't you? But
so the recruits on the show who tend to get through your phase the best are the ones who don't just blurt out the first response that comes into the mind, and then all of a sudden they're getting themselves in a cycle of what they do is they tend to sit and pause, try to engage that logical brain and respond accordingly. Yeah.
And also the ones that are successful manage also to plug themselves back into feeling a little bit more like themselves rather than just reacting in the heat of the moment. And when back to the resilience thing, plugging back into your superpower. Yeah. Timing and a deep breath is all part of that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just remember who you are. Just remember what you're about and what you stand for. And if you need to, in a life and death scenario, plug into the stuff that you're confident with.
Hmm.
Where are you confident? Can I control this situation at all? Yeah, I can. I'm the one that's got the mic here. I'm the one that's been asked to speak. Therefore, I can, if I'm clever and take my time, be in control of the airwaves here. And if I'm in control of the airwaves, then the interrogator's not asking me a question.
That's a really good point, because when we do a lot of coaching on public speaking, we do it ourselves and we do it, I think, very well. So we get asked to coach other people. And one of the things, the biggest fear globally across 85 countries in a survey conducted, the biggest 5 fears globally was 5 was death or illness. 4 was like heights, or I don't know, it was heights. 3 was open water or closed spaces. 2 was an array of insects like spiders, bees, creepy crawlies, snakes.
I thought you said raving sex then. So what was that?
Well, no, that definitely wasn't in the top 5.
No? What did you say about that?
Number 2 was an array of insects.
Oh, array of insects,
not raving
sex.
sex. That would be cool though. If that was the second top fear, an array of insects like spiders, bees, wasps, snakes.
Yeah.
Do you know what the number 1 was?
No idea.
Public speaking.
Oh, really?
Yeah. More people would rather die than speak in public. But the point is because when people speak in public, they get that fight or flight.
Yeah.
They fear judgment. What if I mess up? What if this goes wrong? What if you don't know what you're talking about? And then our heart rate increases, our cortisol floods our brain, etc. So, but what you've just said makes sense, because when we teach public speaking, we say you're going to get these emotions and feelings. And believe me, 15 years on, I still get them. But the way I interpret them now is, I know my content. I'm in control up here of what is said. I'm transmitting. And I've got a healthy level of cortisol that says, this is important, Martin, switch on. So I harness it as adrenaline and not as
That's a good
anxiety.
Word. Harness. Harnessing is great.
Harness the emotion into something positive rather than succumb into it as a threat.
Harness and channel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that then puts you in what we call as a challenge state mindset. I'm aware of consequence. Yeah. I'm aware of what might go wrong, and I understand why I'm feeling the way I am.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm prepared and I'm ready to smash this.
Yeah.
And that's where I think I give the best performances and the best talks and the best sessions when I'm on the edge.
Yeah.
When I'm there.
Because the level of nerves are good.
It means something to me. I know it's a big audience. I know it's important, but I'm ready.
Yeah.
I gave one at Hull City Hall recently. It was 1,000 people for a graduation ceremony for a college. And even for me, I sat there at the front in my gown. So they gowned me up.
Oh my.
1,000 people.
Oh, right.
And even I had that moment where it was like,
doing here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you've just got to harness it.
Yes.
And I am a believer in wrestling back control. We have the power to do that.
Yeah.
We do.
Now, I was just about to say something then, and this might just have gone out of my head. What was I going to say?
I have that. I have that habit, Liz, of going on 2 minutes too long, so you forget your point.
Oh, I know. I'm back in the room. Hang on, I've got it. Now, what I was going to say was, along those lines as well, when you're delivering something or you're nervous or you're in that scenario, like we're going back to the interrogation thing. Wanting to be perfect or to give a perfect performance is also, or it can be, tantamount to a dismal failure or a feeling of dismal failure, because don't ever aim for perfection. I always describe it as, when you've got a dog whistle, you can get these whistles for dogs that no human can hear, but a dog can hear it.
Yeah.
The most people that I get in my coaching practice are aiming for perfection, and they've got themselves into a tizzy. And one of my first rules of life is just loosen your knicker elastic just a little bit, because you don't need to be perfect. Only you know when you're not 100% perfect. So why don't you just slack off a little bit? And give it, 95% for argument's sake. You will be aware that you've not given it that extra 5, but that extra 5% is, how would you call it? In proportionate effort and in proportionate time is spent on getting that 5% that only you will notice. So give it up, loosen your knicker elastic, and what you'll gain is a little bit of flexibility and a little bit of humour back in whatever you're doing.
I love it, Liz. Do you know what this ties in with? You've done your print with us today, you know, and you've understood your motivators. There's a certain motivator called perfect, correct, and right. So number one, and these are the people who are perfectionists, and it's a self-perpetuating cycle because they endeavor to be perfect. They sometimes produce results me and you could only dream of producing, even at 95%, right? But what they do is, instead of being happy with it, they go, but it could have been better. So they never fully feel fulfilled. And then in that bid for perfection, which they're never going to reach, they actually lose confidence.
I'm quite an advocate, if you don't mind me. I don't know whether I'm allowed to F and Jeff on.
Of course you are. I'm notorious for it.
Fuck it, it'll do. It's fine.
Yeah.
Does it do the job? Is everybody happy with what I've done? And does it lead somewhere else? Usually I like that as well. Does it give you a chance to lead off from? Can you step off from what you've just produced?
Well, do you know what? One of my biggest influences on since when I started this business was a guy called Guy Kawasaki. If you have never checked him out, he's written a great book called Enchantment, and he was the chief evangelist of Apple for Steve Jobs. Right. So what he was tasked with doing is getting the brand of Apple out there. Yeah. And when they first built the Macintosh, before Apple became the global entity that they are, when they first built the Macintosh, Steve Jobs was a bit of a perfectionist and he didn't want to ship it until everything was right. And Guy Kawasaki was really influential in saying, no, we've got to ship it. We've got to ship it as it is. It will evolve and it will get better and our customers will feed back. But we will be waiting forever if we're waiting for the iPhone that came out 20 years later.
And actually stepping off from each step of that, each production step, is actually nowadays where they make the money, I suppose, as well.
So they know that you launch Macintosh 1.0, you're going to launch, 1.5 in 18 months, and your customers are going to stay loyal, and that's how they've built their business. Yeah. But it was the great tip that of don't ever wait for it, just ship it when it feels right and learn and evolve from it. And I've always been like that with the products and services we've done here at T2. Look at some of our training sessions and some of our content. It's evolved massively since day one, but I was still proud of it on day one. Yeah. It's just come on. So don't wait for perfection. I think it's a great point, Liz, that too many of us sometimes worry about judgment and failure so much that we insist on everything has to be perfect.
It absolutely stunts your growth and it hampers your performance big time, I think, because it doesn't allow you to flow.
Yeah,
I think flow is where it's at.
Yeah,
as is it. Evolution is a given because it is just happening. Everything is evolving, and either degenerating if it stands still, or improving if you're on it. And that's another thing to remember.
It's like you're talking my language. I've got a different slight saying to that. I always say to people, "You are either growing or you're dying. There's no middle ground."
No.
You're either just experimenting and evolving and pushing, going forward and focusing on what you want to do, or you're trying to hold the middle ground, but inevitably, as a result, you're dying.
And even when it looks like you're standing still, you're not necessarily stuck either. Sometimes you need to appear to be in one place, but your mind will be doing something else. Your mind will be processing things, evaluating things, and planning.
Absolutely. Give yourself that time.
Yeah.
So with a couple of minutes left, Liz, is there just complete open forum for the end? And we haven't got a couple of minutes left. What, in your coaching sessions, when you work with people on performance, what, if there was one thing, one rule you live by, or one thing you would offer advice on that could make a massive difference? I know this is a tough question, but what would it be?
Embrace your imperfections. Loosen your knicker elastic.
Yeah, love it.
Don't be afraid of yourself. Gosh, have a bit more fun. Yeah, you're here for enjoying yourself as far more, I think, than you realise. You're not put here just to work hard and then drop down dead.
Yeah.
Go and live.
Yeah. So one of mine is being present.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always been one because my brain works at 100 miles an hour, or I'm constantly having to do something, or even if I'm at home bored, I'm cleaning the sideboards or I'm going to the garage. And my wife sometimes says to me, it's okay to do nothing. Just be present. Just watch the kids.
Yeah.
Look out of the window.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said for that, isn't there? Because
Yeah.
with technology, we're off.
And the last thing I want to say is, don't underestimate how good it is to get into the habit of going for a walk
In nature.
in nature, preferably. Yeah, absolutely. But get your headphones on if you want some music. Get a playlist that you feel groovy walking to, and go and do that, because it's massively impactful on your mental health.
Love it. And I think we're going to finish there, Liz. I could talk to you all day long, but Liz Abram.
You never asked me what my favourite colour was or anything.
I know, but I've got 30 minutes because I keep them short and sharp.
Okay.
But listen, we'll get you back on another one. Liz
Brilliant.
Abram, that was fascinating. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
And we'll be back shortly with another T2 Hubcast.